Shalom, shalom again, brethren. I'm sharing another lesson study with you. It's entitled, The End of the World. The End of the Age of Man's Present Rulership. In Matthew chapter 24, Yahushua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Yahushua said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So from these three verses, we can see that the disciples came to Yahushua to show him the buildings of the temple. But Yahushua in turn said to them, See all these things. He says, Surely I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So we who understand what Yahushua is saying here should recognize that the so-called wall of the temple that is supposedly still present in the so-called city of Jerusalem is far from what Yahushua is saying. Yahushua said, not one stone shall be left upon another. So evidently, we see that a lie of great proportions, of great magnitude, has been perpetrated and continues to perpetrate throughout the ages. The so-called wall that the Israelis put their praise in is not a part of the temple that existed during the time that Yahushua was living in Judea. And thirdly, we can recognize that the disciples eagerly wanted to know what shall be the sign of Yahushua's coming, of Yahushua's return, and of the end of the world. In Matthew chapter 24 verse 4, Yahushua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Mashiach, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So we see Yahushua replying to them and letting them know from the onset what to expect before his return. Bear in mind that as Yahushua speaks to them, he's letting them know what is going to occur in the future. So we can look at what we've read so far and understand that Yahushua is answering his disciples that were then present with him. In verse 6, we see that they will be alive when they hear of wars and rumors of wars. And Yahushua said to them, See that ye be not troubled. When you hear of these wars and these rumors of wars, don't be troubled. He says, For all these things must come to pass. Meaning, the wars and the rumors of wars, they will happen. They have to be fulfilled. But he goes on to say to them, but the end is not yet. So though you see these wars and these rumors of wars, the end is not yet. Matthew chapter 24 verse 7 reads, for a nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. So these are things that would have been occurring during the time of the apostles' lifetime, right after Yahushua had ascended. It goes on to say, all these are the beginnings of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Again, Yahushua is telling the apostles, his disciples, what would occur and what would happen to them after he departed, before the end of the world, and the signs that would occur before he returns. Verse 10, it reads, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. This word here, iniquity, in verse 12 means sin. Verse 13 reads, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So here we see Yahushua telling his apostles back then, he that shall endure to the end shall be saved. Now, brethren, I want to bring a little more clarity on what is being presented here to the minds of those of us that are living today, those of us that are following Yahushua today. We need to recognize from here on in that Matthew chapter 24 becomes manifold. Manifold. Yahushua said in verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Well, when Yahushua was speaking to his apostles, to his disciples then, it was not the end of the world, because the gospel did not reach the kingdom of the earth, all of the kingdoms of the earth. It did not reach all the nations of the earth. But now in 2020, we know that the gospel has reached all of the nations of the earth. So we can see the manifold aspect of this chapter, Matthew chapter 24, as Yahushua addresses the apostles, his disciples then, his followers then, and his followers now. Verse 15 says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by the prophet Daniel, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. So here in verse 15, Yahushua now is pointing the apostles and us today back to Daniel. But where in Daniel and what about Daniel is Yahushua pointing us to look at and to have some understanding of? Let's go to it and see what it says. Yahushua pointed his disciples to the abomination of desolation mentioned by Daniel, which is found in Daniel chapter 11, verse 30 and verse 31. And it reads, for the ships shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return, and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And the arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. This was mentioned during the reign of the Medes and Persians, under the reign of Darius. So Daniel got the understanding of the abomination of desolation, and he wrote the sum of it here in Daniel chapter 11. Now, to be fair and to be clear, when we address the abomination of desolation, we need to understand some basic concepts and context of the scripture. We need to understand that the abomination of desolation is something that presents great danger. It presents a great danger to the people, to the saints of Yahuwah. When we read here in Daniel chapter 11 verse 31, and arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice. This word sacrifice is not here in the original Hebrew text. This word sacrifice is an addition by the translators. So when we exclude this word sacrifice, it would read, and arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. So now the question begs us to ask, what is this daily? This daily then means continuous or continually, without interruption. The English word for abomination is derived from the Hebrew word shikuts, which means disgusting, filthy, and concerning to idols. In other words, disgustingly nasty and filthy. The word desolation in Hebrew is shemem, which means to stun or to grow numb or to stupefy. The abomination of desolation then is something that is false worship. In other words, it is a counterfeit. When we read in Revelations chapter 13 verse 15 to verse 17, we can clearly understand what that counterfeit is. Revelation chapter 13 verse 15 to verse 17 reads, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. The abomination of desolation as we have clearly looked at, we could then recognize that it speaks to the present Roman Catholic papal enforcement of the Sunday law, which states that Christians, in respect of religious freedom and of common good and of the common good of all, should seek to have Sunday and the church's holy day recognized as legal holidays. Brethren, this is taken from the Pontifical Councils. Pope Francis went on to say that Sundays must be a day of rest dedicated to God and family. Again, this quote is taken from the Catholic Sun, June 6, 2012. Pope Francis says that Sundays are a gift from God. Don't ruin it. So we can see that this abomination of desolation, the law that is being enforced presently in 2020 by the Roman Catholics leader Pope Francis, is what is the abomination of desolation is. The abomination of desolation seeks to force and will force people to submit to false worship. So by now we should understand and recognize that when Yahushua says in Matthew chapter 24 verse 15, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Verse 16, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let them which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Shabbat day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. So there's a time of great tribulation that is destined to occur in the very near future. This great tribulation has not yet occurred. Had it occurred, Yahushua would have already returned. Matthew 24:22. And except those days should be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So the days of that great tribulation shall be shortened for the elect's sake. This is why I had previously mentioned that Matthew chapter 24 is a manifold prophecy. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Hamashiach, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Mashiachs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. This simply means that everyone that is alive will see when Yahushua returns. Verse 28 reads, For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Verse 29, Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So the great tribulation that is ahead of us, Yahushua makes it very clear that after that great tribulation, he says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. So brethren, as we go through the close of the final days of man's present rulership, the ending days of man's present rulership, we know that we still have to witness the great tribulation. We know and understand that after that great tribulation, immediately after, we know that we will see the sign of Yahushua. But bear this in mind, brethren. The scripture tells us that during the great tribulation, the Sabbath, the Shabbat, will be kept. And it will be kept by those that worship Yahuwah, by those that have not bowed to the false system of worship, the abomination of desolation. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 1, it reads, "In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters." When we go down to verse 13, it reads, "I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever and ever, even forever. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoureth and break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Verse 21 reads, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Brethren, these beasts that Daniel mentioned here represents the kingdoms of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and presently divided Rome, which is modern day Europe. We are presently living to witness the demise of divided Rome, that fourth kingdom that is here mentioned in Daniel chapter 7. As Daniel continued to explain and to be explained to, we read in Daniel chapter 7 verse 23, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and a times and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all kingdoms shall serve and obey him. Here too is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. So, brethren, I hope that we recognize from the scripture verses presented by Yahushua that we are indeed living at the end of the world, the end of the age of man's present rulership. Shalom, brethren.